Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode number 17 of the Just a Minute Show. I'm your HoopSeen host, Austin Smith, and I'm always joined by my guy, my big brother from another, my man, Justin Young, who's our editor-in-chief here at HoopSeen.com. And JY, this is episode number 17, and as always, we recap the latest and greatest. We've got some good stuff for you guys from this past week. JY, first off, man, you still rocking and rolling. You haven't stopped since. Well, what's your sleep pattern like now? How do you say?
Yeah, it's pretty crappy. It's a pretty crappy sleep pattern, man. We have nonstop basketball going on still to this day. Just got back from Las Vegas, where, as you know, there's a lot of basketball that happens this time of year with Summer League and different prep events that are going on. So yeah, just got back into town from that, which was great though. It was a good way to end it. It was nice to go to somebody else's event that we weren't running, so I could actually sit down and lock in. And I actually went and bought my own chair so I could get focused. Yeah, it was good. But the season, you can definitely tell that we played deep into the playoffs, right? And our bodies are telling us hey, it's time to take a little break. So yeah, I don't have any trips planned for the next couple of weeks. So that's a good place to be.
Hey, I heard you mention something about buying a chair, man. That's the thing about our own events. You can get a seat wherever you want, you know?
Yeah.
It's awesome. You feel like first class, first service, you know what I mean?
I know. Luckily enough, we have great friends in the business who allow us to, when it's not our event, to buy our own chair and put it up where we want. So I appreciate my friend Dinos Trinagas for letting me do the same thing in Las Vegas over the weekend.
No doubt, man. Shout out to Dinos. All right, well, J-Roll, let's get to it, man. We got a lot on this episode for today. We'll get started. Let's talk about these All-HSA teams. Yeah. I think this was pretty unique. First off, let me shout out Brandon Anthony. The graphics for the All-HSA team have been awesome. Okay. Yeah. I know this is almost not non-basketball related, but media related. Shout out to VA, man. That stuff has been fire.
Well, I challenged him to create something that would match the level of play that our All-HSA teams came with. And I said, hey, listen, they earned an opportunity to be honored in such a way. And BA is such a craftsman in his work that he knocked it out of the park. I thought, he did such a great job. So make sure you go check out our HoopSeen Instagram page, or go to hoopseen.com and look for the All-HSA team story. But yeah, man, we didn't talk about them. We didn't talk about them last week. They've been out for a while.
Yes,
but I want to make sure the spotlight went to Brianna Patton so she could talk a lot about the NBA Players Association camp and get her on camera. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. And I know we talked about our preview camp. You and Ty and our good friend Daryl LeBerry got a chance to do that. So we definitely wanted to talk about the All-HSA team, even though it's a little delayed. But yeah, it's still relevant enough to make sure we get a conversation about it.
Let me ask you this, JY, before we go right into it. If you could give a quick hitter just for people out there, what goes into your mind when you're selecting the All-HSA players? Obviously, the best player ones, but what other traits are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a good question, because our entire staff, we had over we probably had 8 different people, our entire staff that was out there the whole season. And that was a good question that we had to ask, because we had some high level, elite level players. We'll talk about the Thompson twins, for example, right? They started the season playing with Florida Pro, and they played on the HSA. When they signed with the overtime contract midway through the season, it definitely changed things. So for me, I looked at the totality of the season and how long did you play? And so it's the same thing. The best way you can compare it is that we saw the same conversation this past year with the MVP with Nikola Jokic, right? He played the whole year, therefore he won the MVP, where you had other guys that you could make an argument for being the MVP, right? But they didn't play the entire season. And so for us, that's what we looked at. I wanted to find the totality, who started and finished with us. See, on the back end of the season, Team United, they finished the year on the championship game down in Orlando. Yeah. But that team that they didn't have all those same guys in the springtime. So we had to do a lot of gauging in the totality of the year that went in through that. So that was number one. Number two was the impact that they had and the value to their team. Did the one player raise the level of a team? And if they weren't on the roster at the moment, how would that team fare without them? So the overall value, right? The most valuable player, most valuable prospect, that had to be factored into that as well. And then ultimately it just came down to consistency, right? Did we know that if you went to a game, was that player going to give you the same thing? If Josh Tech went to that game, would you give the same thing? If Ty Young went to that game, or Justin Byerly or Brianna or me or whomever, right? whomever on our team, to Cortland Christian, Andre Whitehead, like anybody on our team went to go watch that player play, are they going to get that same sort of impact game in and game out? So those are probably the biggest factors that went into it, because it was really tough. Like we had a really good group of players within the HSA this year, but those were all the factors for us that when you really boiled it all down, came into it. So that's kind of how the parameters, and I'll explain a little bit more as we kind of dive into the team on some of these players too.
Okay, so let's do it, man. Let's go through the list right away. We know you mentioned the Thompson twins and their stellar play. Who else, man? Let's go through the list and give people that top five.
Well, let's start with the most valuable player.
Let's do that first.
Yeah, that was Aiden Hadaway of the Atlanta Timberwolves. He was, I think, game after game after game after game, the most effective player that we had in the league. Inside and out, he was 20 and 10 every game. Yeah. We saw great defensive capabilities from him. We saw him as a great passer. We saw him get better, actually, throughout the course of the season.
Right.
But you knew with Aiden Hadaway, you were going to get 20 and 10 from him every single game. And what was interesting about his selection as MVP, because it was down to him and the Thompson twins. I mean, that's what it came down to. But Aiden, for the course of the season, started really, really well, finished even better. And that process along the way raised the level of play for his Atlanta Timberwolves team. And he got hurt in June, and that we saw that in July at Best of South when he wasn't on the team, and how much his value was missed from that group. And for me, that was when I was like, okay, he's probably our MVP from the totality of the season. And along the way, we saw his recruitment blow up. We saw him ultimately commit to Ohio, a team that was recruiting him, but even back in the spring, that they were able to get eyes on him because of our partnership with NY to LA. We're a regional that they came in and watched teams from that area. So like, it was really a cool culmination of things to see Aiden Hadaway. But with him, I think he's going to go to a place where Ohio's a team that we know is going to be a contender for the NCAA tournament. And mid-major basketball always has a player like Aiden Hadaway on the roster. And for me, he has the most value of the guys that are going. He picked the right level. He picked the right spot. He's picked the right coach in Jeff Bowles. I can't wait to see where he goes. To me, the more I think our staff thought about it, he was an easy decision for us to pick MVP. I mean, you saw him a ton. I mean, were we right on? Were we spot on?
I thought he was spot on with the entire five, but definitely Aiden for sure, man. Just like you made a key point. You saw his play increase during the duration of the season, and you saw the impact he had with the Atlanta Timberwolves. For me personally, I was impressed with, even when he got hurt, he still was out there competing and still getting double doubles. Like I think one game he got hurt, he finished 16 and 12 or something like that when we were back at the Best of the South. So you talk about a player, even on a bad ankle, still performing at a high level. And you saw the versatility, you saw the inside outside, you saw him handle the ball in transition. That piece, man, at a forward with his size, who impacted games on both ends. You got to go with him for MVP the way he affected the entire season for the Timberwolves. Consistent
from start to finish. And not to compare him to Jokic, but Jokic had that same narrative when people were making these arguments for different players to be MVP. You heard the same sort of argument being made for him at the NBA level. And I thought there were a lot of transferable ways to make an opinion regarding our HSA team. And I thought it was a really easy choice. And he earned it, man. He was phenomenal all season long.
Indeed, man. Aiden, congrats to you, man. And also congrats to the Atlanta Timberwolves, on a fantastic season. Okay, Joe, we got to keep it moving. Let's keep looking at some of the other guys on this first team for the All-HSA.
Can I talk about the Thompson twins a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's break them down first.
So they were, to me, let's go back to our tip-off event back in March. Okay. They were the trending players in America.
Yeah, nationally. Yeah.
Nationally. In Florida Pro, I would put that team with the Thompson twins on it against any team in the country.
Yep.
Like legitimately. And they did. They played any chance they could play, they played.
Right.
And so to me, like, I really, really took that into consideration for the totality of the season. But again, going back to what I talked about earlier, we had to look from March to July. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so when you don't play the half end of May and you don't play all of July, it's hard for me to consider that for totality. But it was a really actually difficult decision, because what Amen and Asur did in the spring is as good of any two prospects that I've seen ever in my career. Wow. As far as the value that they brought to the table, and they put people on their heels every time they played. They were phenomenal players. I do wonder if the NIL ruling would have been passed, say like in February or March, would this trajectory be different? Because we've seen, and we're going to talk about a little bit later on the show with a guy like Jalen Duren and Monty Bates. But I do wonder, would their decision to go play for overtime be impacted if the NLI would have been differently? And would the Thompson twins would have played the entire travel season out? Because like when they sign with overtime, they're done playing. We haven't heard much about them at all, right? So to go to this giant spotlight to almost nothing at all is really interesting. Right. And how we have narratives in grassroots basketball. Like it went from trending to the top level #1 to like not at all.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, because of the new rules that are in place. I mean, the twins are amazing. They're amazing. And they're twins. They're super intelligent young men. Like they're very, very marketable. I think they would be really smart in the things that they do. I do wonder how much that trajectory would have changed. If they would have played in July, if they would have had a stage like the Best of South, if they would have had a summer trail. I mean, imagine those guys playing 3D Empire.
Listen, you know, the moment you said two of the best players across that team, I was thinking about that from the jump.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
So obviously they made our number. They made our first team. It was a no-brainer. I mean, they're to me, they'd be an All-American selection if you did like one for the entire travel basketball. Easy choices for the Thompson twins out of Florida Pro.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Okay, let's keep it moving. Got the Thompson twins. Next up, man, Tony Carpio, Atlanta All-Stars. Let's talk about
again.
Him.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency. Another double guy, right? Like we kind of joke, like going into every single event. Our guy Brandon does all of our graphics, you know, and we have top performers. You've seen them for every event that we've done. And Brandon just jokes, well, I've already got Tony Carpio's pitch already ready to go. Because you knew like he was going to be the guy on a really consistent team with the Atlanta All-Stars. Carpio was going to come with it. He was going to be one of the best big guys in the entire tournament. He was hard to stop. He was a really simple 15 and 12 kind of guy. And that's what you got. And that's what you got from March. And that's what you got all the way through July. And so, again, you play on one of the top teams. You have consistency in all the categories, and you raise the level of play for your team. He was an easy choice for our team. You know, Breonna Patton and Josh Tech saw him a ton, and they were like, oh, no brainer. Don't even really need to argue this. So he did a terrific job.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to Tony for sure on a great season. All right, last but not least, man, let's talk about Jabor McGee, CP25, Alabama, Mississippi. I know Ty Young was big on Jabor McGee, and I was able to see why in person as well. Tell us what you like about him, JY.
Yeah, DeCortland Christian, our Alabama publisher, really did a great job of keeping up with Jabori, keeping a great eye on him. And we also saw with him a guy that got better throughout the course of the season. And we saw a guy that could defend inside, he could defend outside. We saw his shot get better. He really put the pressure on people on the defensive end of the floor. I think what he did, I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but I think he still, to me, is probably the biggest sleeper in the South, honestly. Okay. Like, I still think he's a player that, because he's so competitive and he's so willing to guard and he can do it in multiple positions. I think a lot of college coaches, and if you're watching this right now, coach, like, pause it, text me, like, look up his number in one of the books that you bought this summer and recruit him.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, like he's a guy that will challenge your current team the first day he gets to practice. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for me, like, when you look at what he did and how much better he got throughout the course of the year, again, consistent production on one of the top teams in the HSA. And again, it was an easy decision for us to put Jabor McGee in there.
Man, double salute again, man. Jabor McGee. Congratulations.
Pause it, coach. Pause it right now. Push the button.
Hey, that was the mark. Go ahead and do so, man. Y'all heard it, man. Pause it.
And go
to just freeze real quick. You know what I'm saying? We'll freeze for a second and they can keep going. All right. So look, JY, the funny thing about this All-HSA team is that, in my opinion, is when you look at these players across the board, these players could compete nationally. When you look at this team, like, it's some really good guys on this list. And you talk about us being here at HoopSeen, being one of the best. I'm going to be biased. The best independent travel circuit around. Yeah. Yo, man, these players can compete and they actually prove their worth all season long against top teams around the country. And I think that's what makes the HoopSeen Association so special, is that all the guys listed have that potential to be really impact guys at their corresponding schools where they attend. And I love the fact that we were able to create that all HSA team. And I think that's pretty unique because you don't really see that nowadays. I think that was dope.
You know what it is? It's a cheat sheet for March when you're building out your bracket in 2-3 years. It happens every year. It happens every year. Like I remember when Jordan Lyons, one of my all-time favorite guys on our platform, the guy burned every net of every court he's ever played on. Okay. And then he sets the record for like the most, amount of threes, and he plays really well in the postseason, the SoCon tournament. People are like, oh my gosh, where did this guy come from? I'm like, what do you mean where did he come from? I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Been doing it for years. And so like when you look at these players that are on our list, like again, Aiden Hadaway's going to be on an Ohio team that's going to be playing like North Carolina in the NCAA tournament, and they're going to beat them. And people are like, oh my gosh, where did this guy come from? He's been here.
Yeah. And
we say this all the time at HoopSeen. They're only a sleeper if you're not watching.
Right.
They're only a sleeper if you're not watching. So enough with this narrative of sleepers. That's why I say pause the video right now. Go recruit Jabari McGee. Stop messing around, man.
JY, when you get adamant in series, that means it's no games, man. Y'all hurt the man. Like pause it.
Listen, right now. I think I've made my career of not like shrinking on words. And like I'm not on Twitter every single second tweeting about every single player that's ever played. Like God bless you if that's what you do. Like I have no problem with it. But like if I say this guy's good, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our team's the same way. Like we see a lot of players, man.
A lot of players.
We saw 1,600 teams in July.
Saw a lot of teams, man. That's a lot of teams on signed up.
3,300 games played in July. So if we say like these guys are really good, we've got decades of experience to explain why we believe that. So anyways, enough of me. I'll get off the pulpit now, man. Jeez.
That's
man. Congratulations to these young men. They put in the work. And I'm really grateful for our team that we had a front row seat to see it all from start to finish. And that's really satisfying to watch the guys get better and really help their teams and win and make memories that I think they'll remember a long time.
Man, no question about it, man. Wow. I'm just unbelievable season from those guys. And again, I'm using it as a cheat sheet come March, man. I'm looking forward to having that sheet of players and then, being able to go back to it and say, man, we told y'all, we can make a video. Let's make a video. Look, one of these guys' names comes up. We make a video called I Told You So. And it's
going to be called Seeds 10 through 16 Bracket Busters. You're going to look through, and they're all like top performers of guys that went to mid levels that played. Yeah, it's like
hashtag why you should have watched Just a Minute episode 17.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man, let's keep it going, JY.
Let's do it.
With the HSA season ending, you've still been on the move. And I think kudos to you, dog. You got like Energizer batteries or something, you keep going, but you were in Vegas this past week.
It's called stupidity is what it's called.
A cup of coffee a day, man, Red Bull, something.
Straight water, baby.
There you go. But you were in Vegas, JY, and there was an event going on. Let's talk about that. And I kind of want to shout out 3D Empire, but I want to get ahead of myself. So I'll let you do the talking, man. Tell us about what went down in Vegas.
So Fantastic 40 went down in Vegas. They do it every year in August. It's a collection. The theory of it's a collection of all the top teams, regardless of brands. We do it with Bob Gibbons. There's other events. I really like it because one, it's Vegas. The old days, Vegas was really where we ended the summer, right? And so we had some tremendous events. The big time tournament, Adidas 64, the main event, different events that happened in Las Vegas. Well, Denis Trinogas and his team, they partnered up with the circuit, who did a really nice job this year of covering a lot of different leagues, particularly EYBL. It wasn't a very big event. I think they had, maybe 48 teams, 50, 60 teams, which was nice. It's perfect size. And so you had a lot of teams where, our friends from Each One Teach One, our friends from Southeast Elite, from Florida, they came out there. We had a lot of top teams from the West Coast. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other teams off the top of my head. Dallas Showtime, a team that I really, really like. Dallas Showtime really just went after you. Really good teams from Utah, California, Arizona. Our team, the Factory, that came out to the Valley Jam, had a really good week. They ended up winning the silver bracket. Anyways, but our friends from 3D Empire, who won the Grassroots Basketball Summer Championship, AKA the top independent team in the country.
Yep.
And we've said, if you've watched this show, I don't want to sound like an old man telling people to get off his lawn one more time, but we've said this from day one. Independent teams are just as good as the shoot teams. Yeah. And because of marketing at the highest level with millions of dollars behind it, it is said and taught that that's not true. The shoot team's in the best country, and it's utter BS. Yeah. And we saw it play out because 3D Empire went through the bracket, and they were crowned champions. Now they were scheduled to play a group of all-stars from the state of Texas, anchored by Keontae George, who, we'll talk about here in a second, maybe the number one player now in the class of 2022, just committed to Baylor over the weekend. Shout out to Baylor, the national champs. They get another top guy from the state of Texas. It's tremendous work for them.
Unbelievable.
But 3D Empire, they were supposed to play them. The Texas team decided they didn't want to play the game, so the de facto champions were 3D. But 3D, we know that they're powered by Anthony Black, they're powered by Cam Ambery, Terrence Ramirez, Ryan. Forgive me, Ryan, I don't ever want to mispronounce your names. Going to Stanford, sharpshooter, net burner. Tremendous coaching from our friend Sean Ward. They were the de facto champs. And again, it goes into the narrative about the value of an independent team. And if you think about next year, if you're a young player still watching this, if you're a parent still watching this, find an opportunity for your son to be on the floor and compete.
Say it again, man. Just
find an opportunity for your son to be on the floor and compete.
Man,
just play. You have to play. You can only get better by being on the court in competition.
Right.
And I saw a lot of players, and I don't mean any disrespect in this, but I saw a lot of players who I know are very, very talented that had a really cool week in quarantine for 2 weeks in a town in East Georgia that played 6 minutes a game. So that's not going to create opportunities for yourself to compete. And those aren't always the best teams. Yeah. And 3D Empire proved this point time and time again this year, that if you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
They could go to Nike and be competitive. They can go to Under Armour and be competitive. They can go to Adidas and be competitive. But the value for 3D Empire, you know what they did? They played all those teams from all those leagues, and they still beat everybody, and they still competed. And to me, that's the value. And to me, that's why I love seeing them play. I was 1,000,000% biased. I wanted them to go and win, because it proves to the point that I believe so strongly in, is that if you're good enough, you're good enough.
Right.
And they did that. Anthony Black will be a McDonald's All-American because he's good enough.
Yeah.
Ryan's going to Stanford, one of the premier universities in the country, in the world, because he's good enough. Cam Ambery is going to go to a program that's going to go to the NCAA tournament and beat your bracket, period. He's good enough. Terrence Ramirez is going to UT Arlington, and it's going to be a program that's going to win 20 games a year because he's good enough. And so, for me, when you look at, and they've got other players on their team that they had, and they went through and they went to Vegas and they brought home a championship. I know they wish they would have been able to get that game in, but I think they probably would have won that game, to be truthful, because I think they're a better team. They weren't it's no fault of the All-Star team. That team was kind of put together, and we see that all the time. It's hard to develop instant chemistry right away. They had a tremendous week. Don't get me wrong. Awesome week for those guys from Texas. Awesome week for the state of Texas. Shout out my boy Buff from Dallas.
Yeah, I'd say shout out Buff, man.
But it was awesome to see. And so if you're thinking about a team next year, if you're a parent of a player in a 14U team, a 15U team, a 16U team, is your son going to be in a position that he's going to be able to play and be competitive game in and game out? To me, that's the biggest narrative. Not saying that the shoe route is wrong. Everyone has their own way that they want to get to the success they want to get to. I support that fully too, but I don't want the independent teams to always be looked as the fourth option, because that's just not the right way to go about doing it, because the best teams in the country are good enough no matter where you compete.
Absolutely. And we saw that week in and week out, man, on our circuit. You saw that even this past weekend, like you said, with 3D Empire, another independent team stepping up to the plate, getting the job done. And kudos to them. I'm with you, man. I'm kind of biased myself. I want to see the independent teams win, because you got to realize at the end of the day, and this is good for parents and players watching, like JY just said, you got to go where you can play. And in order to develop, you've got to play. Sitting on the bench doesn't really do anything at all, other than you might get some cool gear, but you're sitting. You can use that time, to be getting minutes, getting on the floor. And then, like you just said, with that 3D Empire roster, you name 3 guys on that team who are going to wind up playing high-level college basketball. 3 guys that already are right now. They're playing mid to high-level basketball, and that's from an independent team. So it can happen. So, debunk that whole myth that you got to go to shoot.
Anthony Black's being recruited by Baylor, Gonzaga, the national title game. The first player that John Shire, the new, coach and waiting for Duke, went to go see, the very first chance he could as a new head coach of Duke was Anthony Black. Okay. So Kentucky came in and watched him. All the blue bloods came in and watched him. Again, they don't care, man. Look at the draft. Look at the draft. Are you good enough?
Yeah.
I don't care where you play.
Yeah.
I don't care where you play. So
Dang,
anyway, it was cool. It was fun. It was a great weekend. It was a great way for us to kind of put our travel season, our coverage behind us. We covered a lot of stuff. We still have so much more to cover. A lot of news and notes. I've been updating our database left and right. Ty and Young and Daniel Paccioni are already talking about 2022 and getting those things in order. I've got some stuff I'm working out here in the West. So we're excited to hopefully get, buttoned up and get that stuff rolling out. But, we're looking at teams. We're looking back now at the history. If you're a top independent team in the country, okay, if you're a top independent team in the country, Ty's not going to really like this, but sorry, Ty. If you're a top independent team in the country, I don't care where you're located, and you want to compete and you want your guys to be seen, give my guy Ty Young a call. 470-266-8862. That's the HoopSeen hotline, okay? 470-266-8862. Call him, text them, okay? Like, let's get you guys involved with what we're trying to do.
Blow his phone up, man.
Yeah, blow it up. Blow it up. Sorry, Ty.
Yeah, he's not going to like that at all, but I'm with it, dog.
But that's the HoopSeen hotline, man. It's open 24 hours, so always give it a call.
Yo, no, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because I know how Ty's going to get.
Yeah, you can already see it.
But yeah, man, again, you heard Jay Watt, man. If you're an independent team, come to the best stage. You get a chance to play, man. You get a chance to compete. Do that. Call the HoopSeen hotline. Get registered. Plan advance. Make 2022 a year to remember for you and your ball club. All right, Jay Watt, let's keep it rolling. Big news in the national landscape, you can say as well. Jalen Duren, who classes up to class of 2021, and he commits to the Memphis Tigers. A big move for head coach Penny Hardaway and his staff. And Memphis is getting another big-time recruit. Let's talk about it, Jay Watt. First thoughts from you.
Yeah, I mean, the best one and done we got in prep basketball. He had a tremendous summer. Peace Jam champs. He checked all the boxes. Guys won in Montverde. The guys won now, the Peach Jam. The guys, Jalen Duren's got gold medals. I mean, he's got all the things he's probably one of the most decorated guys that we've seen. Okay. Wins. Tremendous, terrific young man. What a score. I mean, what a score. I'm not as well versed of Jalen Duren's recruitment. So I was a little surprised. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but again, I just wasn't well versed. I wasn't involved enough to know where he was being recruited because we were so focused on what we were doing.
Right.
But man, what a score. Now here's the thing. The number one thing I thought when I heard Memphis has now got to win. Okay. Now they had a really short window of time with James Wiseman. They had a really short window of time with a guy like DJ Jeffries. Yeah. But they're landing players. Like we know Penny's going to get some players. Okay. Right. Like probably one of the premier guys. Now you're getting Jalen Duren. Like what can you do with a guy like him? He's won everywhere he's been. Okay. Internationally, scholastically, and travel. Okay, guys checked all the boxes. Right. What's his value going to be? To me, he's more valuable than any player that we've ever seen go to Memphis, honestly, coming into it. Maybe even going back to Derrick Rose. To me, that's the level of a commitment that Memphis is getting. Wow. And Memphis is never going to be shy of getting talent. Okay. They're tremendous. Penny's tremendous closer, probably the best closer that there is. Awesome. I mean, what else can you say? It's awesome for them. Awesome for that city that loves basketball. And what a score. And again, to your point, moving up to the 21 class, pardon me, I'm telling you, Vegas, you gotta stay hydrated after that trip to Vegas, man. It stays with you a little bit.
Get some water if you need some, bro. No thing to it, man. No thing at all.
But I mean, what a score. And the class of 21 now, not only with him, but Imani Bates moving up too. Yeah. So we've got to really reshape our rankings for the 21 class. I'm doing that now. If you need to find me, you can find me out here in Metro Phoenix in a coffee shop, headphones in, my red book out, and I'm doing our rankings hand by hand, trying to figure out who is the best of the best in all these classes. So yeah, a lot to consume. What do you think of Imani Bates? Do you think he's headed there with them too?
Man, I don't know. That's been an interesting topic. I think, let me say this. I think this G League option is becoming more and more prevalent for this Ignite team. I think that we will see more and more players, high-level players, continue to trickle in and use that as a way. I mean, you look at a guy like prime example, like you look at a Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga, who I had a chance to watch Jalen, I think it was a Sunday night for the Summer League game. And then also Jonathan Kuminga played on the 3rd and 4th with the Warriors. And you could already see, all right, yeah, they've learned that from that year of pro experience in the G League. You could already tell. So I'm interested to see where Imani goes because you got the national NIL as well. So you got that to think about also and how it could really affect his decision making. I don't know. I'm interested to see where he lands though.
Yeah, Memphis, Oregon, Michigan State, the other options as well. Yeah. So could we see them rejoin each other, Jalen and Imani?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be amazing. So that's certainly something to watch. We'll know something, I think, pretty soon as well. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Green was amazing the other night, wasn't he?
Oh, man.
I mean, I've said it. I think that guy's a 10-time All-Star, 9-time All-Star in the NBA. So exciting, so much fun to watch.
He looks ready, man. Like he looks ready. I was impressed.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to have some conversations. Jarrett Jack just joined the Phoenix Suns.
Absolutely, he did, man. Shout out to the former Georgia Tech alumni, man, and then played a lot of pro basketball, man. He's a great guy, first off. Let me say that. Jarrett Jack's a great guy.
Great.
Really good career in the NBA as well.
So he played with those guys. He was on that G League Ignite team to be like a leader, to be a mentor. I'm excited to talk to him about that and the value and the pro. Like, he's pretty involved in travel too, like gets out there and knows what's going on. So I'm excited to have a conversation with him about that very topic, about the value that you get from that as well. So I didn't mean to get off on the rails. You know what this does though now, Austin? With the 21 class, these two top guys going in, it leaves a giant void at the top of the class of 2022. I don't know what to do, man.
Well, look, I mean, even when you start talking about class 2022 and the void, now we got to figure out who's the top player. And I know everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to go ahead and figure out who is going to be that next top dog. I mean, 3 options, and we talked about this briefly. Keontae George, Shaedon Sharpe, Derek Lively. I think it's Lively. I don't know how to pronounce it. I forgot. Yeah. So for you, JY, out of those 3, tell me a little bit about each, and then where do you think they fit in contention for that number 1 top dog spot?
So it's a really interesting question. And so now with that opportunity to take that over, I'm curious to know who plays with the purpose that says I'm the best guy in the building. Yeah. Okay. And you know that when you saw Jalen Duren, you know that when you saw Imani Bates, we saw those 2 guys go back and forth. We knew that when we saw Anthony Edwards. Okay. We knew that when we saw Zion, like the no-brainer, like, oh, that's the guy, like my wife comes with me sometimes to some of these, and she goes, oh, who's that guy? He must be. And you're like, oh, that's Anthony Edwards. He's all right. So like, well, that's Jalen Green. Yeah, like he's really good. That's Cade Cunningham. Yeah. And so like, who is that guy that's the no-brainer when you watch him? Shaedon Sharpe to me has the most undeniable talent when you watch him. He has the most undeniable NBA level athleticism. I mean, I think about this. I went to an event called the Great Western Shootout, or the Great Western Classic, in Salt Lake City, Utah, last October. Okay. It was me and my colleague, Kristen Peak, who was with Yahoo, who's fantastic, the most positive person there is in grassroots basketball, or I guess she does a lot of stuff too. But we were sitting there watching Shaedon Sharpe, and he was doing things, and we were just like, who in the world is this dude? And the roster was out of whack, and so we weren't sure who it was, or no, he wasn't, whatever it was, but it was a Dream City Christian. I saw him a ton during the prep season before he broke his jaw. He played with a wired jaw shut. Okay. Like, the guy's just unbelievable athlete, where when I watch him, I go, there's nobody else in prep basketball like that guy. Like Gerald Green, we had number 1 in the country.
We talked about this
before. Yeah. Yep. And so like, he was an undeniable talent, undeniable. Right. So Shaedon to me has a lot of the things that you're like, oh, that's the guy. Yeah. That must be the guy. So I think that's where you got to start the bar. I think Derek Lively to me is kind of the X factor here, where now he moves in the alpha dog role for big men, where I'm excited to really dive into the film. Like, I've been on the road nonstop. We've talked about this. I've got a queue lined up where I'm just going to watch film nonstop for like the next 2 weeks. And he's the primary guy I want to go watch. And so like, he's gotten a lot better. I saw him at the Pangos camp, looked really, really well, played a lot of, we talk about apples to apples, played a lot of other 7-footers there. We looked really, really nice. And then I just watched Keontae George for the umpteenth time over the weekend, and nobody gets a bucket better than him, where there's a Bradley Beal value to him. When I watch him at his peak, I think he's Bradley Beal. We've got to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit more fire. But we know going to Baylor, you're going to get that out of Scott Drew and his staff. I do a tremendous job of developing guards. Yeah. So I think you have to take that into consideration where they're going to college. To me, those are the 3 guys that are going to be in consideration for the top number 1 overall spot. I think to make a decision right now, is a little knee-jerk reaction where I think you've got to go back and really do your research. If there isn't a definitive no-brainer, I think that's the process that has to go through. So that's at least what I'm going to be doing for HoopSeen.
Yeah. Wow, man. I mean, it's three big options. It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. We got a little time before the high school season officially starts, but I think once it gets underway, we'll see who really steps up to the plate, man, and takes that top dog status for themselves. Wow, a lot of this episode, Jay. Man, I enjoyed this. This was a good one right here.
It was a good one. Well, we haven't done this enough. We got so caught up in the whirlwind of July. We got to get back to this action, baby.
Man, July was crazy, man. A lot of action coming soon, man. It's coming soon to the podcast. Real quick, Jay, before we end up, man, any closing remarks from you? Anything you want to keep the people and the viewers aware of, or anything last thing you want to say real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's recruiting season now. So guys are going to be taking their official visits. I mean, that was my number one question I've asked every prospect I talked to over the course of the weekend. Who are you visiting? When are you visiting them? And as we get back into this, look on HoopSeen every Friday. Fast Break Friday's coming back. We didn't do it last year because the visits were off the table. It's my favorite thing that we do. I've been doing it since the Rivals days of, who's visiting where they're going, who's visiting, who's the most important visits. Yeah. If player A goes to school A, how much does that affect player B and his recruitment now with his B, C, and D? Yep. So the whole domino effect of recruiting, this is the fun part about this season. And so our staff are going to be all over. I mean, collecting visits all over the place. If you are a prospect or a travel coach or a parent and your son's going to be taking an official visit or unofficial visit anywhere, hit us up with a DM on HoopSeen. I don't care what level it is. If you're going to a junior college, you're going to NAIA, if you're going to Duke or Kentucky, I don't care. Everything in between. We want to know. That's our whole point and purpose of what we do, is creating a platform for your son to go get an education and have a chance to play basketball at the collegiate level. We want to know about it. So let us know. Hit us up with that HoopSeen DM. Don't call or text Ty on the hotline with that.
You set that up, man.
Don't do that. You can. Wouldn't suggest it. Make sure you hit us up on the HoopSeen social media accounts, and we'll get you squared away over there.
Man, no doubt. Y'all heard the man. Hit us up on the HoopSeen DMs for sure. Don't hit up Ty Young. Okay.
If you are an independent team, you want to get that smoke next year. 470-266-8862 is the HoopSeen hotline. Make sure you hit us up and let's get you in there.
You love to see it. Hey, Jay, one thing I want to mention too, man. You talked about Fast Break Fridays and including the recruiting season. I think it's just dope, man, to have guys taking visits again. We missed that in 2020. Yeah. So it'll be good to see that going through the wire across the Twitter timelines, the text. Oh, this person went where. It's always fun to know who's going where, man. And again, everyone, let us know, man. We want to help you all get to the next level for sure. Well, JY, I appreciate your time, man. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 17 of the Just a Minute podcast. I'm your HoopSeen host, Austin Smith. And as always, my right-hand man, my guy, our editor-in-chief here at HoopSeen.com, Justin Young, is on the screen with me. For now, we're signing off and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.